there's a general understanding. It's not really stated, it's implied. It's a behavior that's embedded in the way in which they kind of behave. It's almost like, there's a code that they've adapted or adopted that makes it easy for them to then discuss amongst themselves. And there's a mutual sort of understanding around how one ought to behave. It seems like it's something like that.
And getting things done, actually. They told me whenever they come against some conflict, they just meet each other and work out on a solution as a unit and move forward right away. Whereas I'm used to, or I've experienced situation where if you're making more money than me or gaining from something more than me, then you soon start feeling shady, or I'll start acting shady towards you. Either you don't want to associate with me because you're making more at that moment, or I'll feel jealous of what you have and go ahead and do something else. Whereas we can just work as a unit and build this network together and take us forward as a...
But that takes... No, I got you. It takes us forward as a community. But it would sound like there would be some requisite sacrifice from others in order to make this a reality. Yeah, and yourself, 100%. And sometimes it's other people that must sacrifice. In other instances, it's yourself that needs to sacrifice, yeah?
That's very true. You got to stay humble and understand where everyone's coming from. I think one thing is that, unfortunately, maybe we don't talk a lot. As Africans, we're not too deep with our emotions, maybe, and the reality of what we experience. So knowing each other's in-depth feelings of how we act according to what's given to us is kind of challenging. So you have to be humble and understanding, compassionate, and show someone the empathy that you're willing to understand where they're coming from.
Got you, bro.
Respect follows.
Respect, yeah. Value systems. All right, bro. Now, thank you for that, because I think sometimes we jump to the technical stuff, the talent components, the technical abilities that we have, but actually the thing that is embedded within all of that is behaviors, its values, its attitude. So now, discipline, which is an unseen thing. From what I could gather, the genesis of your participation in the music industry was from a singing perspective. Can you take us through the evolution of that, one, meaning how did your contribution to the music industry start and how it evolved, where it's at now, and where it's going to go in the future?
I started off as a natural artist, you'd say. I draw and I'm visually competent. And so even understanding sonics was easy. So music class was a favorite of mine, art class was a favorite. And then they threw me into school choir, leading the bands and stuff like that. And that's where the interest started building. And eventually, I was curious on how they actually put together my favorite songs. And then one of my teachers introduced me to the softwares, the DAWs. And then that just brought me into a whole different world. Although I started singing like that, eventually I got myself into production. So I concentrated on the production side. So later on, I can come on board and make these songs for myself as a singer and as a rapper eventually.
Right.
I picked within the community I was with, I identified the talents, the rappers that I were working with initially.
Okay.
Made some tapes.
Where was this, by the way? Locate us, because we are currently in Nairobi, Kenya, but this might be a different region, so let us know.
Oh, definitely. I'm sorry. I was assuming that we're already Umoja, bro. We're speaking about the same place.
Oh, okay, so meaning there's no borders. In your perspective, borders don't exist. We kind of just fluid moving.
Yeah, but let me get specific. So this was in Tanzania, right? Right after high school, as I'm going towards uni, I work with this young cat and I put out this mixtape for them, and it does well and it's impactful. He gets approached by a number of different people, prominent people and labels. I go on to uni. I do the same thing with another friend of mine at uni in the UK who's Nigerian but residing there. So I made another tape like a year later, and things started picking up in that sense. Although my sounds to my people in Tanzania felt like so global, they'd say so out of order, so ahead of its time. it was something that would discourage me, but eventually I started thinking of it or using it as a superpower because it showed me that I actually have something that's different to what's being developed right now or being showcased there.
Sure. So now, I mean, all right, that really is hitting on something that's interesting around I'll call it the evolution of music from an organic perspective in terms of the influences that come from different regions and what you learn when you are in a different space in terms of how it informs your style, right? Because clearly your style evolved due to experiences to the point where and to the point where maybe when you came back from the UK, there was this maybe like, you don't sound like what we understand. Like what's your takeaway from that experience in terms of, because normally they say music is universal and it should, empower, it should affect, it should move people regardless of where it comes from. Like, what is your assessment and takeaway as far as the mixing of ingredients to make a beautiful piece of music?
I feel like our genre or our community's music labeled Bongo flavor is sort of a mixture of those elements that we were growing up with or reflective of our history and culture. So we've always been the people to blend certain elements that would reflect to who we are. And I feel like with the right experimentation, we can take it further, especially if our higher ups allow us to. Because if the gatekeepers are going to maintain the current regime of the mainstream, we'll keep the creativity away from the potential of the entire market and eventually even lose our sound through that.
But wouldn't you say that the introduction of other elements that are not native is in itself a dilution?
It is. But I would like to make a point that music is also a form of language, just how we blend English here and there, or how, what's that word I said yesterday and you're like, oh, wait, that's the same thing in back home, right? So there's certain elements we need to incorporate in order to be understood. I was even talking to a visual artist yesterday at the Hub. He was telling me how some of his paintings are not going through to the audience who come to his showroom. And I was telling him, hey, what you're doing there is just communicating to your audience. Art is provocative. So you out to find a language that's understandable and pierces through that audience and make them feel some type of way.
I think that's the role of art, bro. It's the feeling component. I think we also touched on it to say that, sometimes it's undeniable, regardless of the labels that we may put onto music. One of the things that are undeniable is the way a person feels when they hear a specific piece of music. And sometimes that cuts across race, it cuts across ages, it cuts across nations, it cuts across regional specifics. When something is beautiful, it's beautiful and it's provocative all the time.
Would you ever thought that a K-pop artist would be singing on Afrobeats? Right?
Who would have thought that?
Who would have thought? I mean, that's the impact of what we have as a community, as a continent. That's the impact of our essence. But it's also essential to pick from what they understand and make sure it's relatable to them.
You played us a song yesterday, and the song was it's almost like a deconstruction of what's something that is natively understood in Southern Africa. The tempo, the drum pattern, which you were saying that it was sped up, but the way in which we understood it was this is how it ought to sound. I didn't think that there was a speeding up thing, that actually creates the sound that then becomes
creates those little melodies.
But then you deconstructed it and then you kind of kept it the same tempo, but you fused it with something a little bit more modern.
A little bit of global, maybe.
Global, that's actually the right word, because all of a sudden I was able to
understand the right way.
A little bit more, bro. So that is a skill, bro. That is a skill. Tell us about that.
Oh, I've been, first of all, that's how we learn. So as a producer, I would replicate my favorite songs like Chameleonaires, remixes, Rihanna's songs, or Zilipendwa, Bolingo. I'll take them and reconstruct them into how I can understand, or sometimes even replicate it exactly.
Yeah.
So the whole purpose of me doing that with this singeli genre is to pave way into new ears in order for them to be curious enough to want to look up that original artist and eventually find out like, oh, this is where it actually stems from. And this is amazing work that you were able to fuse it together and still be relatable.
Okay. Talking about relatability, bro, as you're speaking, one of the things that come to mind is that, everything that we've discussed so far taps on the pleasure centers of humanity, right? Emotions, right? It's things that kind of move us in a certain direction. Do you think that outside of what we've discussed, right, which is the appreciation of something beautiful, do you think art has got a purpose beyond pleasure? A purpose beyond enjoying for consumption, for vibes? What are the other purposes that you attach to art?
I'm a multimedia artist. So there are some scripts I've written for shows and series, and that sort of art is intended to make the audience think about their past, maybe about their governance, about their way of life. So it's not only necessarily enjoyment or good time, but more or so reflection. To me or to us as artists, it can be very therapeutic. Going into a studio or spending time listening to sounds that make you feel a certain way and express. But once it reaches the audience, I intend for them to realize what I was trying to get through and then inject that into their own system and have it work its magic as, hey, matter of fact, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, he is right or wrong, and this is my perception.
Okay. All right. So it can
Think.
So meaning that, do you always approach music that way, or is there specific times when you're trying to make a point to say, okay, I'm gonna embed social commentary, I'm gonna embed what I want people to think about, what's topical right now? Is that always an objective every time you get into a studio?
Okay, I'll come back to the multidisciplinary part. I'm also trained in product design, service design. So before we go into creating the actual product, we tend to ask whys, why doing this thing, and create a plan into finding out the information you need to solve that why and create that product. So I usually have a plan beforehand. Like my recent body of work, it's titled The Lifestyle. So just by the name itself, it's me dissecting the various lifestyles that is in my community and trying to expose what it is that we are going through and make them think about the changes that we can actually embed.
Bro, that's so dope, bro. Where can we find this body of work called Lifestyle? Is it something that exists online or physical?
It's gonna be online. I'm gonna host it on a domain that I'll keep with the same universal name that I use online. And
What is that?
RAW, the 4-on-1. So
All right.
all my handles and the website is gonna be on the same brand name so that it's not confusing for people. And I hope then following year is when I'll be able to showcase this body of work that I've been working on for a little bit.
Bro, there's a lot of thought that has gone into this, and I certainly can't wait, bro. I wish to be part of the audience when it comes out, because it really is seems like a well thought out approach in terms of some level of intent that you have certainly brooded over and incubated over a piece of time, over probably an extended amount of time. So it's surely going to be a worthwhile immersion into that particular content.
Even visually too, it's gonna reflect the same aspects
But
I'll be doing something new even on my side as a visual presentation.
all right.
When I roll out my stuff, I do make these podcasts like yourself, like behind the scenes stuff. I do that and give a little sense of who I am in order for people to understand why it is I'm expressing that.
Awesome, bro. Thank you for taking us into that future of that body of work. All right. So you mentioned the curiosity from being in the choir and in music, singing, and then deconstruction on DAWs in terms of figuring out how those sounds that were made. What is another musical form of expression that Rogers has? Singing, production. Will we see you rapping? I got the visuals, but do you also express yourself in terms of rap?
Oh, definitely. I think before the singing, I used to write raps and make those raps the melodies of the sang song that I sang. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, I got you.
Write the rap,
No, I mean, melody.
and then that will develop into the music, right?
Is that's like a cheat code, bro? That's like a
One sense or another, because I'm really into the lyricism aspect of the music, whereas sometimes singing could just be an extended note or a hum or a oh, and I'll be done. But I'm also a kid from a similar background of yours. I enjoy boom bap, I enjoy the bars, and I enjoy the message. So rapping was very natural to me. I try not to stress it in order to give myself a hard time. Like we were saying the other day, we're not like, I gotta do it this way. That hinders our creative artistry. It's the me that's thinking about it but not thinking about it at the same time. Letting myself flow.
Yo, bro. It's funny that what you just described is what all of us as kids have always enjoyed in music, right? It's the things that we understand. And when I say understand, I'm not talking about verbs, words, consonants, vowels. I'm talking about sounds. Sonically, bro. Like the fact that your voice is an instrument and that you can sing along and participate with the track instead of forcing the track to follow you, for instance. You follow the music.
Yes. So you said my voice is the instrument, and the earlier question you gave me was what it is that I found out that has been so wowing to me.
Yeah.
So in this modern age, you can literally use your voice as an instrument. There are what are these apps? Models and objects. On my software, there's a synthesizer, a modeling synthesizer called Object, where you can inject your voice and translate it to whatever instrument you want.
I've seen that.
Yeah, so that recently has been wowing my mind, and I've been experimenting on things like that, which has been very fun.
Yeah.
And wow.
Yeah, that removes the limitations, because normally you would have to play those notes. But if you can sing them, and the synthesizer or the platform can create, a musical notation or musical.
But sing it that bass line.
Exactly. Exactly. And then it becomes as a bass. Something I've always wanted. I wish something like that existed from way back when, because sometimes if you have to rely on someone to play the notes, it's quite difficult. You know it in your head, you can hear it, you can probably sing it, but
it also slows you down.
It slows you down, bro. So things are gonna change, bro. Are you worried at all by this powerful technology that makes things like these that were difficult 10 or 15 years ago much easier now?
I am so excited, bro.
You're not worried at all?
Because unfortunately, for my brand, I've been carrying it more so like a one-man army. Yeah. So for me, it feels like, oh, wow, that's a load shed, especially on the marketability part. I can create content and duplicate it for different platforms without having to sit there and edit it individually for each platform, right?
And also have to call big crews, big budgets, Do you think that may devalue music? Or is it just us in the music industry who actually see these things? Perhaps the rest of the people don't worry about how it was created. Like, do you think it devalues what we create, makes it less valuable because it takes so quick to achieve? Does it make it any less valuable?
I think it's going to depend on how we apply it as a community. if we allow it to devalue what we essentially created as humans, then it will become that. It will become so saturated that we forget original Drake and we just take AI Drake for the real Drake years and years later after Drake has passed. Yeah, right?
The hologram. Remember when Tupac came out with a hologram?
God, it shocked people, bro. And that technology exists. And it's regular nowadays. You can, matter of fact, I recently saw a hologram you can have in your meeting room, like here. You can have a meeting with someone across the world through a hologram. I mean, it's exciting, but I am scared. I can't buy it.
Yeah. All right, man. We're going to make some parting shots with my man Rogers. I want to know what he wants to leave the people with, especially those who've never come across him before, what they can look out for in 2024 and beyond. And the one thing that you want to leave with this particular audience around that, what would it be, my man?
The other day, I also told you this. Back home, I tend to highlight this statement that heshima ni kitu cha bure. Respect is a free thing. So it's really up to you to deliver yourself in that manner that allows the other party also to feel comfortable. If we respect each other, the community can get so far ahead.
Word to the wise, man. There's a young man with wisdom right there. And on that wonderful note, ladies and gents, thank you for your time. As always, I'm Landmark, your host, signing out with my man, Raw, a.k.a. Rogers, the 411. Ladies and gents, thank you for your time, my Rogers. Thank you, my G. Appreciate you.